Okay, this is a bit of an odd lecture for myself for reasons that will become clear, I hope. I don't know if it's just my age, but I hope at least a couple of people will recognize the work being referred to in the title. Uh, as I'm sure most of you have already noticed, I have a very odd sense of humor. Okay, I have been teaching, not always at Liverpool, for over 40 years now. I have been at Liverpool since August the 1st, 1985, which is probably before almost all of you were even thought of. In that time, I have uh, met, dealt with over 5,000 undergraduate students, 1,000 MSc students, a dozen or more postdoctorals, postgraduate students. I have taught 15 distinct modules, at least, including Basic for geologists, Pascal for electrical engineers, data structures, novel computer architectures, history of computation, experimental methods, operating system concepts, automaton computability, Boolean function complexity, computational complexity theory, and indeed the current module, Analytic Techniques for Computer Science. I have supervised in that time probably close to 100 or even over final year undergraduate projects. And I have been given a responsibility for over 14 administered roles. These range from roles that no longer exist or are no longer entrusted to academics, timetabling, chair of board of examiners. I've served for almost a decade on faculty undergraduate progress, an odd body called the Faculty Learning and Teaching Committee in Science. I have been a representative on that strange university body, the Board of Discipline. I have been program director for 2 degrees. I was the second and the longest serving chair of the Board of Studies in Computer Science, which I did between 2005 and 2019 before Prudence took over from me. I designed 2 new degree programs, neither of the year in industry program exists still. Computer information system was phased out in 2018. I've also had input to the very valuable Carmel College and the less valuable Isle of Man schemes and the current degree programs. I've designed 6 new modules, only 2 of which have survived: the Foundations of Computer Science module, which Professor Kerner delivers, and the present one, the Analytic Techniques in Computer Science module. Uh, I, as well as designing, I radically revised 3 existing modules. So up until the 12th of September this year, I have had 6 books, 12 invited book chapters, 3 invited conference talks, 150 odd conference and journal papers. I've acted on 20 plus program committees, carried out 2 program chair and 2 journal editorial roles, and I've spent something of the order of over 200,000 hours preparing and delivering lectures, tutorials, talks, and presentations. Something which was generally okay. Something which was not generally okay were the almost 10,000 hours spent in staff meetings, faculty committees, exam related meetings, and what are alleged to be professional society visits. And finally, we have the last ever lecture that I will give. I'm a great admirer of a 60s English band called The Who, and I will spare people the agony of listening to me singing this. I will simply recite it. Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. I get my back into my living. I don't need to fight to prove I'm right. I don't need to be forgiven. So, this is from a number which appears on the album Who's Next from 1971. The official title is Baba O'Reilly. It's more commonly known by the refrain Teenage Wasteland. It's a lament for the acid fried 60s hippies teenage generation. Good song. So, what am I going to be doing in this lecture? What I'm going to do is briefly review what we've been discussing, what we've been looking at over the previous weeks. And the principal focus is going to be concerned with main parts of the module, how the final exam is structured, some hints on what to do, some more hints on what not to do. So, we started off looking at different form, different types of number, the properties of those, and where it is most appropriate to use those. We moved on to look at polynomial structures, properties of polynomials, operations on polynomials. We then went on to look at this notion of vector and at the attributes which are associated with vectors. We saw how those are used in implementing quite basic 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional graphics effects by coding those as the process of multiplying a matrix by a vector. Typical question you're likely to see is something along the lines of what's the most suitable form to use for a number type in order to carry out or to deal with a particular application. You've We'll almost certainly see questions on computing degrees of polynomials, coefficients of polynomials, and properties of the roots of polynomials. You'll definitely see questions involving vector operations, things such as size. The size measure will not necessarily be the standard Euclidean measure, but if it is a variant on the standard Euclidean measure, that will be explicitly stated. There'll be questions about graphical effects and matrix operations to implement graphic effects. The big questions, obviously, we spent a lot of time looking at calculus and its role in solving optimization problems. We spent almost as much time looking at complex number theory and the uses of complex numbers in computer science. You're unlikely to see on the final exam paper too much about regression techniques. That's because of the nature of the computation that's involved. You will see some basic questions involving spectral methods and in particular applications of spectral methods. And the final part, I covered information theory and language models. I also talked about one and two variable optimization problems in calculus. On complex numbers, the typical questions will be on representation forms and operations on complex numbers. There'll be a bit about quite simple applications as well. For spectral theory, the notion of eigenvalues, and the application of spectral theory to determining properties of graphs, that will also be looked at. For information theory, the main focus is likely to be the source coding theorem and properties of n-gram language models. The exam itself contributes 60%. It will have 30 questions. These will all be multiple choice questions with 5 options per question. Exactly one correct option. So you won't be seeing, as was used on some of the class tests, multiple choice questions with more than one correct option to choose. Exactly one correct option in each case. And the total exam time for those people who will not be taking the exam under special arrangements, that will be 2 hours, 120 minutes. The final exam will be on campus. Calculators will not be permitted. So as a result of that, you will not see certain types of questions, and in particular, you won't see very involved questions involving complicated arithmetic calculations. There may be some calculation needed, but nothing beyond what I will condescendingly refer to as the obvious. Log of 2, radicals, square root of 9, trigonometry, sine of 90 degrees, that sort of level of computation. It's an MCQ exam, so there are various things which it might help to prepare in advance. bring at least one HB pencil and a razor, optional, a pencil sharpener. Accidents occasionally happen. Do not attempt to complete the answer sheet in ink and then ask one of the invigilators what you should do when you want to change an answer. Every year I have been involved with invigilating an MCQ exam, not just this one. Somebody has spent an hour filling out the question paper in usually green ink and then decided they want to change an answer. The only way of changing an answer is to restart the paper and transcribe things in pencil. The automatic marking system used by student and exams cannot process ink. This is another good reason, in addition to the fact that you cannot change answers, for not doing things in ink. Do not attempt to contact me via Teams, via email, via mobile phone, via two tin cans tied together with a piece of string, expecting to get an immediate response at 3:45 in the morning. I'm not making it. This is an email I was sent a couple of years ago, just before the final exam. I will draw the attention to everybody's time. 03:42. It is asking a question which I had and have already answered at least 20 or 30 times. Are there calculators allowed in the COM116 test on Thursday? And the answer, as I'm sure everybody here knows, is no. Occasionally, because of the numbers and availability of specific large sites, the exams have to be split over a number of separate locations. I don't know if that happened with any of the exams you took in the first semester. If the exam is split over a number of different sites, please go to the location you have been asked to go to and not the one where one of your friends is gone. An academic you might happen to recognize is standing by the doorway, unless that either of those coincide with the place where you should be. My apologies for stating the obvious. I'm sure it's not necessary, except every year, one of the problems with split site locations and people going to the most convenient for them location is you will have rooms with far too many people in them and not enough papers to accommodate them, and other rooms which are only half filled because the people that should have gone to that location have gone somewhere else. If you already cope with the three class tests, you shouldn't find the exam too taxing. If you've attempted but had a couple of slip ups, then the thing to do is not to panic about that, but simply to revise the areas which are causing a little bit of a challenge. You've already completed 40%, almost half of the assessment. So, best of luck to everyone. Please feel free to contact me by email with any questions. All of the previous practice tests that I put up, as well as the practice multiple choice question exam, these will have been uploaded to Canvas. Thank you very much for your time. I hope everything goes well for everybody. Thank you again.